So in our syllabus, we have one more regional organization is there, that is about BRICS, and also we have uh, some topics regarding environment and global concern, energy and environment. So today we are going to discuss about those topics. So we will continue our last topic is about European Union, and then we will go for BRICS. So if you see the relationship between the European Union and the India, the European Union is closely with India to promote peace and create jobs, boost economic growth, and enhance sustainable development across the country. So, as India graduated almost from low to medium country, a medium income country, the European Union and India cooperation also evolved the traditional financial assistance type towards a partnership with a focus on common priorities. So, in recent times, in 2017, European Union and European Union and India uh, leaders reiterated their intention to strengthen cooperation on the implementation of the 2030 agenda of sustainable development goals. So as United Nations organization uh, implemented this 2030 agenda for sustainable development and agreed to explore the continuation of the European Union and India development dialogue. So if you see, the European Union was largest trading partner with India in goods. If we see in 2019 and 20, ahead of China and the United States of America, with total trade close to 90 billion US dollars. So India, EU, European Union bilateral trade and investment agreement. It is a free trade agreement between India and the European Union, which was initiated in 2007. So recently, India and European Union concluded the first round of negotiations for India and European Union trade and investment agreements in New Delhi. So the second round also took place in September 2022 in Brussels, with signing with a bilateral trade and investment agreement. India and the European Union expect to promote bilateral trade by removing barriers in trade, goods, and services and investment across all sectors of the economy. If we see, if these agreements will boost our economic growth and sustainable development also, because there will be implementation of no tariffs between European Union and India in these goods and services and imports and exports. So if you see, the evolution of this European Union has roots in looking for an integration of divided Europe because of excessive nationalism over a long period of time, which also witnessed two world wars. So it has played an important role in improving economic conditions and raising living standard of people in weaker members of these European Union groups. So as we discussed, there are 28 member countries are there in this European Union. So this is about European Union. We have one more topic is about BRICS. BRICS is it is also one of the regional organization and important grouping countries of influencing the global economy. So BRICS means BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. B for Brazil, R for Russia, I for India, C for China, and S for South Africa. It's an important grouping bringing together the major emerging economies of the world. So, if we see according to the World Bank data of 2019, it comprises of 41% of world population and 24% of world GDP and 16% share in the world trade of these BRICS. So BRICS countries have been the main engines of global economic growth over the years. Over some time, BRICS countries have come together to deliberate on important issues under the three pillars of political and security, economic and financial, and cultural and people to people. So the acronym of these BRICS was initially formulated by economist Jim O'Neill of Goldman Sachs in a report of growth prospects for the economies of Brazil, Russia, India, and China together represented a significant share of the world's production and population. So, if you see the evolution of these BRICS in 2006 July, the leaders of BRIC, initially BRIC, South Africa is not there, Brazil, Russia, India, and China countries meet for the first time in St. Petersburg, Russia, on the margins of G8, Group 8 Outreach Summit. So, shortly afterward, in September 2006, the group was formalized as BRIC during the first BRIC foreign ministers meeting, which met on the sidelines of the general debate on the UN Assembly in New York City. So, after a series of high level meetings, the first BRIC summit was held in Russia on 16th June of 2009. BRIC group was renamed as BRICS. So, South Africa was accepted as a full member in BRIC foreign ministers meeting in 2010 September. So, South Africa attended the third BRIC summit in Sanya, China on 14th April of 2011. So, if we see the financial aspects of BRICS, so BRICS summit in 2012, the leaders of BRICS considered the possibility of setting up a new development bank to mobilize resources, infrastructure, and sustainable development projects in BRICS and other emerging economies, as well as in developing countries. So, majorly, if you see the major structure of these BRICS does not exist in the form of an organization, but it is an annual summit between the supreme leaders of 5 nations. So the chairmanship of the forum is rotated annually among the members in accordance with the acronym of BRICS. So BRICS cooperation in the past decade has expanded to include an annual program of over 100 sectoral meetings. So if we see the main objectives of these BRICS, the BRICS seeks to deepen, broaden, and intensify cooperation within the grouping and among the individual countries for more sustainable, equitable, and mutually beneficial development. So BRICS takes into consideration each member's growth, development, and poverty objectives to ensure relations are built on the respective countries' economic strengths and to avoid competition where possible. So, if we see the BRICS is an emerging as a new and promising political and diplomatic entity with diverse objectives far beyond the original objective of reforming global financial institutions. If we see the main areas of cooperation with this BRICS group, there are rapidly, it's about economic cooperation, people to people exchange, and political and security cooperation, and cooperative mechanism. So if we see the primary area of cooperation is about economic cooperation. There are rapidly growing trade and investment flows between BRICS countries as well as economic cooperation activities across a range of sectors. And also, agreements have been completed in the areas of economic and trade cooperation, innovation cooperation, customs cooperation, strategic cooperation between the BRICS Business Council and contingent reserve agreement and the new development bank. So these agreements contribute to realization of the shared objectives of deepening economic cooperation and fostering integrated trade and investment markets. So it is about economic cooperation. So So if we see the people to people exchange program, BRICS members have recognized the need of strengthening people to people exchange and to foster closer cooperation in the areas of culture, sports, education, film, and youth. So here, people to people exchange program seeks to forge new friendships, deepen relations, and mutual understanding between BRICS peoples in the spirit of openness, inclusiveness, diversity, and mutual learning. So, such people to people exchanges include the Young Diplomats Forum, Parliamentarian Forum, Trade Union Forum, Civil BRICS, as well as the Media Forum. This is all about people to people exchange program with BRICS. And if you see the major political and security cooperation among the BRICS members' political and security cooperation is aimed at achieving peace and security development and cooperation for more equitable and fair world. Here, BRICS provides opportunities for sharing policy advice and exchanges of best practices in terms of domestic and regional challenges, as well as advancing the restructuring of the global political architecture so that it is more balanced, resting on the pillar of multilateralism. So BRICS is utilized as a driver for South Africa's foreign policy priorities and including pursuit of the African agenda and South-South cooperation. If you see the impact of BRICS on global institutional reforms, the main reason for cooperation to start among the BRICS nation was the financial crisis of 2008. So the crisis raised doubts over sustainability of the dollar-dominated monetary system. So then the BRICS called for the reform of multilateral institutions in order that they reflect the structural changes in the world economy and the increasingly centralized the emerging markets now play with this international monetary system. So BRICS managed to push for international institutional reforms, which led to International Monetary Fund quota reform in 2010. Thus, the financial crisis has momentarily reduced Western legitimacy and briefly let the BRICS countries become agenda settlers in multilateral institutions. If you see the challenges associated with BRICS, the marked dominance of big three, Russia, China, India is challenge for the BRICS as it moves ahead to become a true representative of large emerging markets in the world. BRICS must become pan-continental. Its membership must include more countries from other regions and continents. So the BRICS will need to expand its agenda for increasing its relevance in the global order. So as of now, climate change and development finance aimed at building infrastructure dominated agenda. So as BRICS moves forward, foundation principles of BRICS, that is about respect for sovereign, equality, and pluralism in global governance are liable to be tested as the five-member countries pursue their own national agendas. So, China's efforts to co-opt nation states, which are integral to its Belt and Road Initiative, into a broader political arrangement has potential to cause conflict between BRICS members, especially India and China. So, all the countries in the BRICS group trade with China more than each other. Therefore, it is blamed as a platform to Chinese interest. So, balancing trade deficit with China is a huge challenge for other partner members. So, the five power combine has succeeded, albeit up to a point. However, China's economic rise has created a serious imbalance with these BRICS member states. So also the group has not gone enough to assist the global south to win their optimal support for their agenda. If you see the importance of BRICS for India, majorly geopolitics, present geopolitics has made it difficult for India to carve a middle path for balancing its strategic interests between United States and Russia, China axis. Therefore, this BRICS platform provides an opportunity for India to balance the Russia-China axis. So BRICS countries shared a common objective for reforming the international financial and monetary system with a strong desire to build a more just and balanced international order. So, to this end, the BRICS community plays an important role in G20 in shaping global economic policies and promoting financial stability. And also terrorism. BRICS also provides a platform for India to galvanize its efforts against terrorism. So India is actively pursuing its membership for the United Nations Security Council and Nuclear Supplier Group. So here China forms a major roadblock in pursuing such goals, and therefore BRICS provides an opportunity to actively engage with China and resolve the mutual disputes, and also it helps in garnering support for other partner countries. If you see the recent initiatives of BRICS Media Forum in March 2022, the BRICS countries launched a 3-month long training program for journalists. So this program was an initiative of BRICS Media Forum, and the BRICS meeting on climate change also placed in May 2022. Participated in the BRICS high-level meeting on climate change with the Union Ministers of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change. In the meeting, India highlighted the relevance of the forum of to jointly address climate change, to explore approaches to accelerate low carbon and resilient transition, and to achieve sustainable recovery and development. So, if you see, BRICS should consider BRICS-led effort to meet their commitments under the Paris Agreement on climate change and UN Sustainable Development Goals. So, idea of this setting up of a BRICS credit rating agency as proposed by India and opposed to Western agencies like Standard and Poor's, Moody's, etc., can be BRICS future agenda. So, for BRICS to remain relevant over the next decade, each of its members must make a realistic assessment of the initiatives, opportunities, and inherent limitations. So, BRICS must reaffirm their commitment to a multipolar world that allows for sovereign equality and democratic decision making. By doing so, can they address the asymmetry of power within the group of global governance generally? So, the for BRICS to remain relevant over next decade with its objectives and other initiatives. So the relevancy of this grouping needs to be ensured in the coming decades, which will probably be marred with more challenges. So, if you see the big economies, Russia, China, and India represent the major emerging global markets, making them relevant across continents. The ongoing crisis like Russia and Ukraine conflict, previously the Doklam standoff between India and China, have shown that the political relationships between BRICS can be disturbed at any instance. So the grouping needs more move forward according to its foundational principles. So as we discussed before, that is about respect for sovereign equality and pluralism in global governance are liable to be tested as five-member countries pursue their national agendas. So this is all about BRICS. We have one more syllabus, one more chapter is about environmental global concerns and also issues of global concern, that is about energy and environment. If you see the in this lesson, we will discuss about major issues of global concerns and the energy. Energy means here we will discuss about non-renewable energies and the problems of non-renewable energy sources. So 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 here uh, so here the issues of global concerns are important here because their impacts and damages affect not only the countries and the causes, the problems that they go beyond the national boundaries. So yeah, here in our syllabus we have about this energy, particularly non-renewable energy sources and their problems. So energy is a fundamental to the prosperity of nations and it is an essential input to economic activity. So its production, distribution, utilization are deeply embedded in the fabric of world economies. It refers to usable power. So the energy sources, renewable and non-renewable, powering our societies have been undergoing a period of rapid change. The 20th century witnessed large increase in the global pollution, economic output, and energy resources consumption. So global energy supply and consumption is not evenly distributed. We know that the natural energy resources are two types. One is non-renewable and second one is renewable energy. Solar energy, geothermal energy, wind energy, tidal energy, wave energy, biomass energy are the examples of renewable source of energy. And fossil fuels are one of the basic sources of non-renewable energy. The examples are petrol, diesel, coal, kerosene, LPG, etc., used for all industrial, transport, and housing activities. So here, here non-renewable energy is derived from the resource that cannot be replaced or is replaced slowly or gradually by only natural processes. So the resources that would be referred as non-renewable are fossil fuels like coal, gas, and oils. If you see, the nuclear energy is also considered a non-renewable source because there is a limited supply of uranium in the Earth's crust. So these fossil fuels take millions of years to form as they are created by the remains of dead cells of plants and the animals. So the formation of these fossil fuels in the Earth's crust is a long-term process. Hence, it should not be wasted. So, if you see the types of natural non-renewable sources, uh, these fuels created from non-renewable energy resources are the primary sources of all the power generated in the world due to their affordability and the long process involved in their generation. So usually these non-renewable resources are formed from organic materials which are heated and compressed for many years and get converted into crude oil and natural gas. So non-renewable energy is mainly fossil fuels that are divided into three. Uh, so there is one other non-renewable energy which is nuclear fuel. So if we see the formation of these fossil fuels, natural gas is a long-term process as decomposition is conducted by a high amount of pressure and heat, which takes billions of years. If you see the coal is formed by the decomposition of trees, plants, and ferns, which is time-taking process. If you see the oil, small organisms like zooplankton and algae are decomposed in oil due to excessive pressure. If you see the nuclear fuel can be used in a nuclear reactor to generate electricity. So uranium is one of the fuels used in nuclear reactors. So here this non-renewable energy not only consists of these mentioned resources but also refers to other minerals and metals present in the earth such as gold, silver, iron and other similar materials. So these materials takes a long time in their formation and are often costly to mine as they are found deep in the Earth's crust. So, however, they are much more abundantly available than fossil fuels. So, so if you see the advantages and disadvantages of this non-renewable energy, there have been long-running debates on the advantages and disadvantages of non-renewable energy sources. So, so the consumers must be aware of both sides of the coin. So, because there will be both advantages and disadvantages are there. If you see the advantages of non-renewable energy, these non-renewable energy resources are high in energy. So resources such as coal and oil tend to provide us more energy in comparison to renewable energy like solar and wind energy. So huge fuels can be generated in the mining, coal, selling of oil, or the construction of natural gas pipelines. So these resources are easy to use whether in a home or anywhere else. So consumers can find non-renewable energy sources at a very cost-effective price. So for some people, new machines and other energy sources cannot replace their traditional minerals like coal and oil. So it also known as traditional energy. So non-renewable energy is easily found anywhere and everywhere. So this implies that it can be conveniently moved across the world. So people living in the areas that are not easily approachable can make use of non-renewable energy as well. So most importantly, non-renewable resources are job creating, extracting, transporting, and refining are the parts of non-renewable sources that provide employment. So most of the non-renewable sources are also quite easy to store. So if you see the disadvantages of non-renewable energy, they have number of advantages and number of disadvantages as well as there. So one of the major disadvantage of this non-renewable energy is that it is time consuming. Mining of coal, searching for oil, installing oil drills, building oil rigs, inserting pipes to extract and transporting natural gases are very time consuming processes. It also takes a lot of efforts. And since non renewable energy takes billions of years to form, and they are slowly but gradually vanishing from the earth. So, using these non renewable resources indiscriminately without taking for our future generations, without thinking uh, about our future generations, could be selfish. And non renewable energy can be dangerous and can cause respiratory problems in humans because sources like fossil fuels emit gases such as carbon monoxide. And also, the workers working in the coal mines or oil drills are more prone to a number of health risks. So, as a result, there are large number of diseases, injuries, even deaths also. So, sources like coal, uh, oil, and natural gas release a large amount of carbon dioxide when burned. So, as a result of these chemicals, they are rapidly destroying the ozone layer. So, oxides like sulfur oxide and others released while burning fossil fuels convert the rain into acidic rain, which is harmful to wildlife and as well as human beings too. So, many non renewable sources release smog, which envelops the buildings. Mostly in modern cities, people complain about the same. So, over time, black smoke can make your building and other property appear dark and dirty. So, sometimes it may be risky to transport these non renewable resources as huge cargo ships and oil tankers crash and spill the contents in the sea or elsewhere. So, it can be deadly for the sea animals and human beings who may come in contact with it. So, to keep the power station working, every time we need to keep a huge amount of fuel in reserve. So, this can be expensive and occupy a lot of space. If you see the global impact of this natural non renewable energy, it is commonly understood that the burning of fossil fuels has harmful effect on the environment and is also responsible for global warming, especially climate change. So, along with this, nuclear materials are also associated with the risks, and their radioactive nature makes them toxic. So, besides this environmental effect of fossil fuels, it also causes damage to the economy also. Due to this reason, the demand and the supply of these resources are always questioned. So, the cost to obtain these energies is continuously rising, and suppliers and consumers are finding it difficult to deliver and utilize their resources. If you see the prices of petrol, diesel, and gas in recent times, it is always rising. So, there is no decrease about these prices. So eventually the rising of price ends the users affordability, and consumers are forced to use their other alternatives. So the main characteristics of renewable and non-renewable resources of energy, if you see the renewable resources, these types of resources have the ability to regenerate themselves easily, and the process of regeneration of renewable energy involves ecological processes for a specific time period. If renewable energy is utilized at a very high speed or higher than the environment's ability to refill it, then it may become non renewable energy in the near future. If you see the characteristics of non-renewable resources. They are also termed as a stock resource, as they are not available in high quantities, and these substances can be again used after recycling. And also, these non-renewable energy is available in the form of minerals, which are generally present in the lithosphere of the earth in various forms. So these non-renewable resources can be present in all three states of matter, namely solids, liquids, or gases. So the solid form of non-renewable resources includes coal, ignite, minerals, etc. While its liquid form includes petroleum and other products, and its gaseous form includes resources such as natural gas, etc. So this is about these major characteristics of these renewable and natural non-renewable energy sources. So if you see, the impact of energy use on the environment is depletion of energy resources, pollution of environment from emission of these greenhouse gases, and also energy development is an integral part of economic development, and cheap, efficient, and environment friendly energy resources and technologies are must to stay globally competitive. So uh, if you see, the the critical environmental issues, one is about greenhouse effect. So the greenhouse effect refers to the rise in temperature on earth as certain gases in the atmosphere trap energy. So for example, uh, these gases are known as greenhouse gases. That is, six main greenhouse gases are there. One is carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, plus three fluorinated industrial gases. That is hydrofluorocarbons and fluorocarbons and sulfur hexafluoride. So water vapor is also considered a greenhouse gas. So human activity has caused an imbalance in the natural cycle of the greenhouse effect and related processes. For example, consider salt and human health. A small amount of salt is essential for human life. Slightly more salt in our diet often makes food tastier. Too much salt can be harmful to our health. So, in a similar way, greenhouse gases are essential for our planet. The planet may be able to deal with slightly increased levels of such gases, but too much will affect the health of the whole planet. So, if you see, the World Organization's concern for environment, many summits uh, uh, happening, uh, especially the Rio Earth Summit, Climate Change Convention, Kyoto Protocol, Rio Earth Summit, Paris Agreement are the landmarks in dealing with the global concerns of environment. So uh, it is especially um created for this environment protection. So an important achievement of these summits was climate change convention. The main objective is to stabilize greenhouse gas and concentrations in the atmosphere. So, in recent times, in Sustainable Development Goals Summit 2019, reviewed progress in the implementation of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So, if you see the concept of sustainable development, it is first time during the Stockholm Intergovernmental Conference on Human Environment. So the concept of sustainable development leads us to new resource consumption strategies. So they involve conservation or reduction of excessive resource use, recycling and reuse of materials, and more use of renewable resources like solar energy rather than non-renewable resources such as oil and coal. So here sustainable development also requires meeting the basic needs of all deprived people in this world and extending to all. So the opportunities to satisfy their aspiration for a better life. So this is about sustainable development, and we have the concept of human rights in seventh chapter. So human rights is important for human life, especially we are living with human rights because human rights are uh, uh, universal rights. So if you see, if there is no human rights, the life of humans will be very poor and not healthy manner. So human rights are rights that we have simply because we exist as human beings. So these are universal rights inherent of all of us, regardless of nationality, national, sex, ethnic origin, color, region, religion, language, or any other status. So they range from the most fundamental, the right to life, to those that make life worth living, such as right to food, right to education, right to work, right to health, right to liberty. So if you see the these uh, origin of international human rights. So if you see majorly these human rights, uh, in present times, it was a resolution placed in United Nations organization on December 10th of 1948. So at that time, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is an international document adopted by United Nations General Assembly. So it is establishes the rights and freedoms of all members of the human race. So uh, before that, United Nations was founded by 51 countries in October 1945, after 2 months after World War II ended. So the United Nations was founded to avoid such a disaster as well as to address human rights. Out of all the people who wanted such nations to become a reality, it was a linear Roosevelt, then the many leaders played a crucial role in the formulation of universal human rights declaration. So, however, many diplomats, many presidents of many nations played important role in the formation of this universal declaration of human rights. So the structure of this universal declaration of human rights was influenced by a set of laws formulated by Napoleon Bonaparte centuries before, collectively known as the Code Napoleon. So its final structure took form the second draft prepared by French jurist Rene Cassin, who worked on the initial draft prepared by Canadian legal scholar John Peters. So majorly, the significance of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights is widely regarded as the groundbreaking document that provides a comprehensive and universal set of principles in a secular, a political document that is beyond cultural, religious, and political ideologies. So, the declaration was the first instrument of international law to use the phrase rule of law, so thereby establishing the principle that all members of all societies are equally bound by the law, regardless of the jurisdiction or a political system. So, in international law, a declaration is different from a treaty in the sense that is generally states aspiration or understanding among the member states rather than binding obligations. So, for this reason, this Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a fundamental constitutive document of United Nations, and by extension, all the members, around 193 member states of the UN Charter. So all the member states are accepted and adopted of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, if you see the this UNDHR was not intended to be legally binding, but the establishment of its norms in numerous subsequent binding treaties makes the legal standing of its norms unquestionable today. So, according to this UN Charter, human rights are inalienable. So, this means that people cannot lose them because they are linked to the very fact of human existence. For example, if someone is found guilty of a crime, his or her liberty can be taken away. Or in times of national emergency, a government may declare this publicly and then derogate from some rights. For example, in imposing a curfew restricting freedom of movement. So, human rights are universal, which means that they apply equally to all the people everywhere in the world. So, and with no time limit, every individual is entitled to enjoy his human rights without distinction of race or ethnic background, color, sex, sexual orientation, disability, language, religion, political or other opinions, national or social origin, birth or another status. So it should be noted that the universality of human rights does not in any way threaten the rich diversity of individuals or of different cultures. So universality is not synonymous with uniformity. So diversity requires a world where everyone is equal and equally deserving of respect. And also, human rights are indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated. This means that difference human rights are interestingly connected and cannot be viewed in isolation from each other. So, the enjoyment of one right depends on the enjoyment of many other rights, and no one right is more important than the rest. So, here, international human rights law lays down the obligations of governments to act in certain ways, to refrain from certain acts. So, and the great achievements of the United Nations is the creation of comprehensive body of human rights law. So the United Nations has defined these broad range or internationally aspected rights, including civil, cultural, economic, political, and social rights, and also established mechanisms to promote and protect these rights and to assist states in carrying out their responsibilities. So the United Nations has gradually expanded human rights law to encompass specific standards of women, children, person with disabilities, minorities, and other vulnerable groups who now possess rights that protect them from discrimination that had long been common in many societies. So, if you see the human rights and the United Nations system, human right is a cross-cutting theme in all United Nations policies and programs in the key areas of peace and security, development, humanitarian assistance, and economic and social affairs. As a result, virtually every United Nations body and specialized agency is involved to some degree in the protection of human rights. So, Human Rights Day observed every year on 10th December. So, so as part of this, every state, every nation has created a human rights institutions in their states for the protection of human rights. So, if we see the classification of rights, there are sixfold classification of rights is there. One is about the security rights, and another one is due process rights that protect people against arbitrary and excessively harsh punishments. And the third is about liberty rights. Fourth is protect political rights, and fifth one is equality rights that guarantees equal citizenship, and last one is social rights. So these are the uh, classification of human rights. If you see the features, basic features of human rights are rights inherent to all human beings, whatever our nationality, place of residence, color, caste, religion, language, etc., any other status, all human beings are equally entitled to human rights without any discrimination. These rights are all interrelated, interdependent, and indivisible. So these are often expressed and guaranteed by the law in the forms of treaties, customary international law, general principles, and other resources of international law. So human rights are universal. The principle of universality of human rights is the cornerstone of international human rights law. So, so if you see, many international non-governmental organizations also working for human rights cause. So if you see, one is Amnesty International. Amnesty International is a global movement of more than 7 million people who are independent of any type of political ideology, religion, or economic interest, and who take injustice personally. So the movement campaigns for the world in which human rights are enjoyed by all. And Human Rights Watch is an international human rights organization that investigates and reports on abuses of human rights around the world. And Civil Rights Defenders was established in 1982 in Sweden. It is also an independent expert organization with the mission to defend the civil and political rights of people and empower human rights defenders at risk around the world. And Human Rights Without Frontiers International is an international non-profit organization that promotes respect for human rights around the globe and advocates for democracy, the rule of law, and the social justice. And Anti-Slavery International is also an important international organization committed to eliminating all forms of slavery and similar practices. And International Federation for Human Rights, also an international human rights NGO, active in defending and promoting respect for civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights contained in the United Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And Human Rights Foundation is a non-profit organization that promotes and protects human rights on a global level while focusing on closed uh, societies. And also there is, every nation is containing a constitutional organization particularly for the protection of human rights issue. So if we see, in India, we are having National Human Rights Commission at the union center level, and every state also having State Human Rights Commission for the purpose of the protection of human rights in India. So like India, every nation is establishing these type of organizations for the protection of human rights. So we have established in 1993 under the Protection of Human Rights Act a statutory body named National Human Rights Commission established. So if you see the major human rights violations across the world, Philippines, war on drugs, Rohingya crisis, lockdown in Kashmir, human rights violation in China, and war in Yemen, human rights violations on LGBT, and many issues face endemic violence, legal discrimination, and other human rights violations also there. So it can be concluded that the history of the concept of these human rights is from the advent of uh, human culture, which grows in the Vedic period, passed through the medieval and modern times, reached its due importance with the framing of the constitution of modern state system, including India, and forms the bedrock of the ideals of which modern societies are built with these type of institutions for the protection of human rights. So even ancient India also witnessed these human beings are equal and respect the dignity of human rights. So this is about the concept of human rights. So it covers issues related to human rights, including economic, civil, cultural, political, and social rights, and the right to development. In tomorrow's class, we will continue our syllabus. So thank you for your participation. I will give you a model paper or previous paper in tomorrow or day after tomorrow's class. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. I am concluding the session. Thank you. Thank you all.